Good afternoon and howdy. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Monday, June 20th, 2022, and the time now is 2 o'clock. Notice of this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on June 13th, followed by June 16th. Committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR from the Committee on Rules by the request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operations of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year September 30th, ending on September 30th, 2023, making other appropriations, establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Guam Police Department. I'd like to acknowledge the senators have joined me this afternoon. We have Speaker Therese Terlai, we have Senator Talina Nelson, Senator Tello Taitigui, and Senator Jim Whelan. Those testifying on Bill 276-36 that COR relative to the Guam Police Department have been invited to the panel, and we will begin with Chief Ignacio, but we'll have him introduce his staff that have joined on the panel in a few minutes. General rules of this budget hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. But Chief, you'll be given sufficient time to present your budget, okay? Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the nature of the agenda, which is the budget of the Guam Police Department. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule will result in removal from the budget hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on, that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency for their response. Please state your name and your title for the record. I would ask now the panel to please rise. At the sergeant arms, we'll swear you in for your testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Mr. Chair, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Arm. I will now ask the Chief to please introduce the staff that he's brought before us. But I would advise the staff, once you introduce, when you answer a question the first time, just introduce yourself one more time, and after that, you won't have to do it again. All right, Chief? And then you can begin your presentation for your budget, sir.
Good afternoon, Senator San Agustin. Introducing my staff. To my far left, I have our personnel officer, Ms. Grace Rios Lujan. Next to her is Major Fred M. Chargaleff, the Services Bureau Chief. To my immediate left is Major Manny Chong, the Acting Police Commander and the Operations Bureau Chief. To my immediate right is my Acting Administrative Services Officer. My ASO recently resigned 2 weeks ago, and she's moved on to another department, and she's also my Federal Programs Manager. And to her right is Major Andrew Kirigua, the Investigations Bureau Chief.
And what was her name again? Your new
Miss Anne-Marie Cruz.
Anne-Marie Cruz.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes, sir. God bless her. I always bless her. I always bless her every time I see her.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead and present your budget, sir.
All right. We can begin with the slide presentation. Good afternoon, Senator San Agustin, Senator Nelson, Senator Moylan, Speaker Terlai, and Senator Taitigui. I am Stephen C. Ignacio, the Chief of the Guam Police Department, and I'm here in my official capacity along with key members of the Guam Police Department to render testimony in the fiscal year 2023 Guam Police Department budget review process. What you see on the screen is the agenda for this testimony. As I begin our testimony, I would first like to thank the committee for your continued support of the Guam Police Department, and I look forward to continuous collaboration between the Guam Police Department and this legislative body to ensure that the police service is at a level expected by the people of Guam, while operating as efficiently as possible to ensure that we achieve the best return on our investments for every single dollar spent in our budget. It is important to note that the staff and management of the Guam Police Department continues to work closely with the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, BBMR, and the Department of Administration, DOA, to ensure that we are meeting the intent of the current Budget Act and developing solutions that will assist us in achieving the priorities of the Guam Police Department, while understanding that we must be as efficient as possible. These priorities are to ensure that our personnel of police officers, statisticians, criminalists, law enforcement dispatchers, mechanics, and administrative and logistical non-uniform employees are led, paid, trained, and equipped to perform their duties. I am confident that our FY23 budget request submission achieves this and is adequate. Our testimony provides an initial assessment of the FY23 budget projections introduced by the Governor of Guam, Governor Lourdes Leon Guerrero. GPD expects funding in the general fund, special fund, and federal fund match categories to sustain police operations throughout the fiscal year 2023. The FY 2023 budget presentation will show the distribution of the Guam Police Department's budget in the general fund, special fund, which includes the Police Services Fund, the Guam Highway Fund, and Police Patrol Equipment Fund, as well as federal fund match. The careful distribution of funds within each category of appropriations is crucial to the performance of GPD's operational, investigative, administrative, and logistical services, and thereby contributing to the success of the overall goals and objectives of the department. General Fund. In the General Fund, the FY 2023 projection is $44,145,034, which directly reflects Executive Order 2022-01, which is relative to establishing a law enforcement officer pay scale within the Competitive Wage Act plan, promotion of law enforcement officers and civilian positions, the recruitment of police officer trainees, and the inclusion of overtime due to the difficulty in recruitment and retention of police officers. Executive Order 2022-01 includes the 18% pay adjustment, the 15% retention pay for lieutenants to majors, and the 10% retention pay for the police officer trainees up to Sergeant 2s. It's important to note that the decision for promotions within the department was not made lightly. In fact, based on the personnel numbers reflected below, GPD's numbers of law enforcement and civilians have decreased in large part due to retirement and better employment opportunities, i.e., pay increase by moving to another government agency, or promotions. As law enforcement officers left the department, GPD focused on the constant recruitment of police officer trainees, and from 2019 to present, GPD has recruited 70 police officer trainees. If you look at the box next on the testimony, under uniform personnel, 67 people have retired or resigned or have passed away while employed with the Guam Police Department. 17 police officer trainees have resigned upon when they were hired and have since left during that status. 29 civilians have resigned or retired from the Guam Police Department. In total, we have lost 113 employees from 2019 to present. One is promotion of law enforcement officers. 1 police major, 2 police captains, 3 police lieutenants, 1 police sergeant 2, 10 police sergeant 1s, 12 police officer 3s, 40 police officer 2s, 2 detention facility guard leaders, and 3 detention facility guards. Promotion of civilian positions. 2 criminalist 2s, 2 criminalist 3s, 1 auto mechanic leader, 1 storekeeper 2, and 3 law enforcement dispatchers. Recruitment. Per Public Law 36-54, Chapter 12, Section 39, to recruit a total of 40 police officers per year that includes salaries, benefits, and special pay reflective of EO 2022-01 rates. Overtime budget. Due to the shortage of police officers, it is noteworthy to mention that inasmuch as GPD has continuously focused on POT recruitments, police officers are retiring or leaving the department quicker than we can recruit, educate, provide on-the-job training, and place into the precinct of police officer trainees. Personnel services projections for FY 2023 combine both general funds and special funds for a total of $42,798,000 to sustain the current force and future growth, primarily with sworn officers. GPD currently employs 267 officers, 57 civilian support personnel, and 14 police officer trainees for a total of 338 employees. In the meantime, GPD is also working on recruiting 16 retirees as limited term appointment police officers for 1 year with the $10,000 bonus and 4 GIAA police officers detailed for no more than 1 year. Recruitments for the Guam Police Department are as follows. Pending interview and selection, detention facility guards, police captains, an administrative services officer, an auto mechanic leader, criminalist 2, criminalist 3, payroll clerk 2, police records clerk 1, and a program coordinator 1. Pending the certification list from DOA, a law enforcement dispatcher 2, and a storekeeper 2. Current DOA job announcements, police major, law enforcement dispatchers. Pending DOA job announcements, police lieutenants, police sergeant 2, police sergeant 1, police officer 3, police officer 2, computer systems programmer. It is important to note that the police officer training position is a continuous announcement with the Department of Administration. Effective FY 2022 GPD, per Chapter 77, Title 10, the Guam Police Department reorganized and has established the Forensic Science Bureau, formerly known as the Forensic Science Division, under the Investigations Bureau. The decision to establish FSB, as it will be known, was based on the opening of a fully operational DNA lab, an increased workload, increase of personnel, and the ongoing accreditation process of the GPD Forensic Science Lab. As we speak, the accreditation team is on island, working with our team on the accreditation process. This just started today. The Guam Police Department projects an expenditure of $1.049,503 for utilities inclusive of power, water, and network connection services. Miscellaneous projections. The miscellaneous category requested under General Fund is $845,238 and a federal match of $2.269 million to $2.269479 respectively. I apologize for that. The miscellaneous category funds for the uniform clothing allowance, the civilian volunteer police reserve stipend, annual membership due, and federal grant match requirements. In the special funds category, the FY 2023 special funds appropriation requested is $4,799,876, with 91% of the Police Services Fund and Highway Patrol Division allocated to personnel costs, with the remaining Police Patrol official funds supporting contractual services, supplies, equipment for GPD official vehicles respectively requested for FY 2023. Having provided a discussion and displayed a presentation of our FY 2023 budget proposal, I would now like to put before this committee some important highlights that the Guam Police Department has realized with the funding that it has received in the current Budget Act. Operations Bureau. The Operations Bureau is comprised of the Neighborhood Patrol Division, Special Operations Division, and the Highway Patrol Division. Some highlights for this section are: Operations Bureau has developed policy when dealing with persons with disability. Policy created created guides GPD personnel on how to handle situations involving persons with mental or physical disabilities. Recently, the mobile crisis response team has been effectuated with the Guam Police responding, along with members of the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, to several cases. At this time, there are ongoing coordination and discussion of upcoming training with Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center to educate personnel on how to deal with persons with mental or physical disabilities. Discussion ongoing on the creation of a mechanism for crisis response team that will respond to calls of persons having mental health episodes who have not committed any crimes. As of this reading, we have had 2 confirmed calls with the mobile crisis response team, notifying the Guam Police Department. Also, the creation of a safe haven, which is a location where police officers can transport a compliant customer to get the medical and mental health treatment they need. Drug interdiction. The individual precincts have increased patrol level drug interdictions through efforts to provide training in identifying new forms of illegal drugs that are entering the island, such as fentanyl, cocaine, and spice. Officers are not only trained in the dangers of these drugs, but also the characteristics of its users. In page 9, there's a brief overview of crimes and arrests reported to the Guam Police Department, along with drug offenses, drug confiscations, and the DEA task force reports of methamphetamine confiscations. And it'll be covered again shortly in the next presentation as we move on. In 2021, the Guam Police Department responded to 33,197 calls for service, 13,624. No reports were generated of the police service calls. No reports were generated due to follow-up in the field, which the call was either unfounded, only counseling was done, or removal or security check. The Investigations Bureau is comprised of the Criminal Investigations Section, Special Investigations Section, the Juvenile Investigations Section, and the DART team, the Domestic Assault Response Team. Detectives have worked tirelessly to investigate cases that would otherwise be considered cold, which directly resulted in the discovery of 2 cold case homicide victims, one reported missing in 2017 and the other since 2020. This unique opportunity showcased the deep desire to ensure the closure of their cases and highlights for the first time in Guam police history that 2 cold case victims were discovered exactly 1 day apart from each other. One of the cases involved the extradition of a primary suspect from Florida, which has not been operationally undertaken in a long time. Both separate but unique cases resulted in the arrest of multiple assailants, all of whom are awaiting trial. From January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021, CIS investigated a total of 196 high-profile cases and effectuated 81 arrests. A majority of the arrests effectuated during this period were for single offenders with multiple cases or for heinous and brutal homicides. They investigated and solved 8 out of 8 homicides. That is a 100% closure rate for 2021, with the minimal manpower assigned. They have also investigated and cleared a total of 159 other violent offenses or theft-related cases, all pending prosecution. The Special Investigations Section. SIS conducted 113 drug-related investigations that yielded the seizure of 58,994.57 grams of meth, or about 130 pounds, 3,315 grams, or 17 pounds of cocaine, 18,379 grams of marijuana, 23 firearms, and numerous ammunition. These investigations included the seizure of assets of in excess of $15 million, both in U.S. and cryptocurrency, 18 vehicles and 3 ATVs, to include effectuating 165 local arrests and 8 federal arrests. CID continues to investigate the drug trafficking trade and its illegal criminal activity on Guam. Juvenile Investigation Section collectively investigated and closed 349 criminal and non-criminal cases, which resulted in 70 minors taken into custody, 28 adult arrests, initiated 24 preliminary investigations, and responded to 92 police calls for service. Detectives also responded to 38 calls for activation to the various precincts for juvenile-related investigations and confinements at Department of Youth Affairs. Juvenile Investigation Section also conducted 4 crime enforcement night operations to address disorderly youth in public places, which has been a high concern for both the community and the police. Using their keen insight in juvenile investigations with the best interests of the minor and community in mind, they have made significant headway in the direction of 21st century policing and juvenile justice reform. GIS detectives have strengthened their partnerships with the Office of the Attorney General's Family Division. GIS detectives are now able to divert juvenile offenders to the Restorative Justice Program as an alternative response to delinquent behavior. GIS detectives have adopted a wraparound concept that connects a juvenile offender to existing community programs. The development and launch of Project U are one of the greatest accomplishments of GIS that addresses youth crime prevention, crime enforcement, and rises to the level of modern technology to interact with the newest community, the online community. GIS created and launched the Project U Youth Summer Program, which also is in its second year of operation. We have 35 kids going through the Project U as we speak. GIS continued this in a Christmas break program, which used the Project U framework. However, this program was designed to be community-centered with emphasis on community service. For the 2-week program, GPD Safe School partners collaborated with GPD to provide a host of resources for participation to achieve success in their community service project. Youth participants and the Safe School partners completed the Derrida Sports Complex cleanup and the Tizan Bus Stop restoration project. Domestic Assault Response Team. DART was able to obtain the following accomplishments geared towards their primary mission. Cases forwarded to DART, 359. Cases closed, 111. 32 family violence arrests, and 21 criminal sexual conduct arrests. DART personnel performance reveals a 31% case clearance rate with the greater part of the year. DART continues to network with community partners, NGOs, and other government agencies to strengthen the response, improve services, and further educate victims and police officers in the areas of criminal sexual assault and family violence. Recently, DART has been trained on and is developing the use of a lethality assessment program format to better prioritize and respond to CSC and family violence cases. Forensic Science Bureau. Effective FY 2022, the Forensic Science Division separated from the Investigations Bureau to become the Forensic Science Bureau. The Bureau is comprised of several sections, which are the Crime Scene Response Section, Forensic Science Section, and Evidence Control Section. The units within the Forensic Science sections are the DNA Unit, Drug Analysis, Biology, Firearms Analysis, and Fingerprint Analysis Units. The goal of the Guam Police Department is to hire qualified personnel to staff these different sections as it progresses into a more modern mechanism of forensic evidence analysis. Accreditation. Currently still on schedule for on-site inspection in June of 2022, and as I spoke to earlier, this started this morning and is ongoing for the rest of this week. The 3 target areas for accreditation are the Drug Unit, Fingerprint Unit, and Firearms Unit. Policies and procedures are updated and reviewed and part of the upcoming inspection. HVAC. GPD is currently working with Mr. Sonny Perez from GRUA to proactively address HVAC concerns. At this time, we're looking at the recommendation from Mr. Perez for the complete replacement of chillers and the possibility of GRUA acting as a project manager to ensure the successful completion should we undertake this project. Crime Scene Response Section is responsible for documentation of crime scene and evidence by still and or video photographs, sketches, identification, collection, and preservation of physical evidence, crime scene reconstruction, blood spatter interpretation, composite sketching, and so much more. At this time, the following has been processed: 933 crime scenes processed, 11 autopsies, and 2 officer-involved shooting. Forensic Science Services Division is responsible for examination and identification of evidential controlled substances and pharmaceutical drugs using chemical, physical, and instrumental means. Examination and analysis of biological samples, i.e. blood, urine, post-mortem body tissues, for the presence of drugs, poisons, or other toxins. Screening of blood and urine samples for commonly used abused drugs and their metabolites, and subsequent confirmation by mass spectrometry. Provide training, guidance, and assistance to law enforcement agencies and prosecutors in the various matters of drug toxicology, serology, DNA, firearms, and tool-mark evidence in the areas of handling and preservation, analysis of blood spatter and body fluid stains recovered as evidence in violent crimes, i.e. homicide, rapes, assaults, hit and runs, and robberies. Identification of blood, semen, saliva, and other body fluids using conventional serology procedures. Assembly and distribution of the GPD sexual assault kits to medical exam facilities, and so much more. Drug Analysis Section is responsible for and has authority over Department's drug analysis functions. 108 cases were received, 115 cases were completed, 246 exhibits received, 218 exhibits completed, 3,997 completed examinations by the Drug Analysis Section. Biology Section is responsible for and has authority over the Department's human biology analysis functions. Firearms Analysis Section is responsible for and has authority over the Department's firearms analysis functions. They received 13 cases. Fingerprint Analysis Section is responsible for and has authority over the Department's fingerprints analysis functions. Since streamlining and coordinating fingerprint APHIS results with the Forensic Science Division, the Property Crimes Unit has made more than 20 arrests from fingerprint analysis results from the APHIS system. In other property-related investigations, they were substantially responsible for the recovery of stolen items estimated to be in excess of $100,000 in value. The Evidence Control Section is responsible and accountable for and has authority over the Department-owned property management functions. Our last bid for the Evidence Control Section construction was rejected, and therefore DPW and GPD will be re-announcing the RFP for the design build for the new Evidence Control Section facility in Jigo. We have the property for this facility already. The equipment inventory budget has been updated to reflect that the most current prices for the new EACS build for the equipment alone is $637,000. Services Bureau. Services Bureau consists of 2 entities, admin and support. Although the smallest of the 3 bureaus, the 2 divisions are responsible for ensuring that all mandates for the Guam Police Department are fulfilled by providing all administrative and support functions for the entire organization. In addition to processing payroll for over 300 employees in a timely manner, Admin Division also processed additional pay for the COVID-19 differential, 10% differential, up to pay period April 23. Overtime, both COVID-19 local and federal overtime, up to pay period May 7th, 2022. The executive order, the implementation of Executive Order 2022-01, effective 1/30/2022. All documents for the 18% pay adjustment, 10 to 15% retention pay have been submitted, and aside from the few glitches, 97% of the law enforcement officers have been paid up to through the current pay period that has passed. Admin Division has processed and received and approved from FEMA for a total of $1 million OT reimbursement, and will be processing an additional $500,000 with anticipation of receiving the allotment by the end of the fiscal year. Support Division. In addition to ensuring that all logistical, mechanical, and dispatch support for GPD, Support Division was instrumental in setting up and maintaining all logistical requirements for the quarantine, QFAC, and isolation facilities, ISOFAC. This requires setting up staging areas to include but not limited to tents, canopies, coolers, ice, and water to all the sites. Support Division received approximately 120,000 and distributed more than 60,000 PPEs to the entire organization. These include face shields, gowns, surgical masks, hand sanitizers, etc. We acquired a HaloSeal decontamination kit. This allowed the Guam Police Department to deploy a team to any area of GPD who would need their work areas decontaminated. They were deployed 5 times, 3 times to Hacabotan area, 1 to the Criminal Investigation Section, 1 to the GPD QFAC command post. As of May 2021, all public service counters are back to normal operating hours from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Community Crimes Task Force, established in February 2021, 2022. The CCTF is incepted to address and investigate crimes throughout the island. Additionally, the CCTF's goals are to work directly with village mayors, business owners, and members of the community to address their safety and security needs in a timely manner. In the short time that the CCTF has been in operation, they have accomplished the following. March 2022, Deredo Skate Park riot. 7 adults arrested, 1 minor taken into custody. April 2022, conducted proactive patrol making numerous arrests and confiscating about 420 grams of meth from the streets. May 2022, 5 of the main aggressors in the Paseo reckless conduct investigation were arrested. They are currently investigating 2 embezzlement cases totaling approximately $100,000. In between investigations, CCTF participated in numerous outreach programs, including the Special Olympics at Deredo Sports Complex, the Project U Jamboree at Epal Beach, job fairs, and career day presentations. They provided 11 crime/robbery prevention assessment at small mom-and-pop stores and gas stations on the island. Body-worn camera program. The body-worn camera program has received $200,000. $100,000 is in matching funds from the Guam Police Department. Pending final paperwork from the grantor before account can be established and then procurement can be processed. COVID-19 operation. The Guam Police Department's role in COVID-19 pandemic operations continues this fiscal year with numerous activities accomplished throughout the department. Primary responsibility over safety and security in compliance with the Guam Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. GPD continues to work closely with the National Guard, Public Health, Fire Department, Customs, DYA, Judiciary, DOC, the Port Authority, Airport and Port Police, and Agriculture. To date, 39 personnel have tested positive for COVID-19 in the Guam Police Department. The COVID-19 security mission continues to require law enforcement response on a daily basis, which resulted in 17 criminal investigations, 8 arrested persons, 64 police service counseling events, and over 369 police security escort services requests. Crowd control and traffic direction at numerous COVID-19 testing sites, food supplement division at numerous distribution sites, free lunch program at 12 schools. Operations Bureau personnel collaborated with DPHSS in getting officers trained in operating the testing devices for COVID-19, i.e. the Abbott ID Now and the Abbott Binax Now. Internal policies were created at each section to mitigate the spread of the virus, handling phone calls, addressing walk-in complaints, conducting investigations, and decontamination of workspace and vehicles. Federal grants. GPD currently has a total of 17 federal grants. 12 of our grants where funding was carried over from FY 2021. 5 new grants in FY 2022 to include the body-worn camera grant, cops hiring, Violent Crime Street Task Force, Coverdale, and recreational boating safety grants. Total new FY 2022 grant funding, $5,532,383. Thank you. Sorry. In FY 2022, $1 million in grant monies have been expended or encumbered. Some of the procurement of capital outlay include 2 SUVs, 1 35-foot vessel, a brand new boat, 1 utility terrain vehicle, 2 4x4 trucks, and 2 heavy-duty trucks, a dually, 2 dualies, 24 police patrol vehicles, 17 SUVs, 1 4x4 truck, and 1 heavy-duty truck. Grant-funded capital outlay. Gigo and Talafofo precinct facilities are not in the works. There needs to be a correction here. $700,000 has been given to GPD for Talafofo precinct's design build. The money has gone up for that project. Conclusion. In conclusion, as we move forward into our FY 2023 budget submission, the Guam Police Department is requesting a total of $51,215,389 in funding. We are confident that this will sustain our current progress of improving our level of police service. The general fund, special fund, and federal fund match portions account for the true personnel costs to include non-COVID overtime projections and recruitment of up to 40 police officer trainees. Additionally, it will continue to address the issues in all 4 bureaus within the Guam Police Department, allocate sufficient funding for our CVPR stipends, purchase parts and supplies, and fund other contractual services. It is my goal in the coming year to continue in accomplishing my vision for the Guam Police Department by growing the department through recruitment of sworn and non-sworn employees, strengthening our civilian volunteer police reserve program, increasing our vehicle fleet, increasing our fixed assets, and improving the conditions and standards throughout the entire department, while staying within the expenditure levels of our budget proposal. The Guam Police Department is committed to our Governor's expectations to develop a policing effort consistent with the Governor's Safe Streets initiative. Internally, we will continue to improve the efficient and judicious accounting for funding that is made available to our department. Externally, we will continue to work with our community partners, federal counterparts, and both municipal and island leaders to take advantage of project adoption or sponsorship and funding opportunities. We are also committed to working with this committee, as well as the entire 36th Guam legislature, to assist the Guam Police Department in accomplishing its goals for a safer community. Sidus Maasi, thank you for the opportunity to present testimony on our budget proposal. At this time, we are subject to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to also recognize Senator Tony Ada has joined us this afternoon. That was one loaded presentation, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions. Speaker, Therese, do you have any questions for the panel?
Hafaday. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Hafaday Chief, and to all of you who are here, thank you for the work on this budget presentation. I'll just start off with a simple one. You put a chart of the resignations and the retirements that have occurred in the last couple of years. How do you explain the resignations of police officer trainees? Do they end up not fulfilling the program or not able to, or are they leaving for another reason? So
Most of the police officer trainees, so example, we actually hired 10 recently for the next cycle, which is scheduled to start in August. 2 already quit. Reason for quitting, the police is not for me. They didn't like the shift work, they don't like the work environment, they don't like, police work is not their calling. So they quit even before they started, if you may. Some of them, actually, the last cycle, I had 4 people quit during OJT. You know, they were put out
So
after
this
all the
is
academics.
in the cycle. This is not after they've completed the cycle already and they're working.
This is in the cycle.
Oh, so
yeah.
in this, okay, then, that's fine. All right,
They didn't make it past go.
okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. Do you, this youth program that you've described that you're active with, try to find it, is, you believe in that program up to now? I know that, you know, when we first started it, it was described to be, you know, it's going to prevent these youth from having a career in crime. But there have been some mayors, for example, who complain that we're not locking these youths up. We're allowing them to, you know, go through these types of programs. So this is called the Restorative Justice Program. It's to divert offenders to that as an alternative response. How do you feel about that program?
So Project U has a specific target audience. Respect to the youth.
Not the Project U, Chief, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Project U is a program, it's kind of like an internship program almost that you guys run, right?
No, not necessarily.
Oh,
It's a mentorship program.
A what?
A mentorship program.
Okay.
We put police officers, several police officers, together with these youth in a youth summer camp.
Right.
And it's a mentorship program where we bring in different community partners to mentor these children on making better life skill decisions. We have people from Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center to talk about suicide prevention. We have the Thrive Coalition from Deredo Drug-Free Organization to talk about drug-free and drug resistance education efforts. So that's the project.
But which youth are in that program? I'm asking about the youth who you are picking up because they're involved in incidences or crimes.
So yes, we generally work with different organizations like Department of Youth Affairs, Department of Education, and we identify the children that we believe may best benefit from the Project U curriculum. Without having, provide to openly say what we're doing, because we don't want to attach a stigma to any of these children as to who they are and where they come from.
Okay. So Project U, because you described this, the juvenile justice reform and then the diverting juvenile offenders to the restorative justice program.
That's different.
That's what I'm asking
right,
about.
Yeah, so that's different. So what we're doing now is we're partnering up with the Attorney General's office, Ms. Carol Hinco Sanchez, and we discuss cases with her beforehand to determine if we're going to charge a minor, bring them before the juvenile court, or we're going to place a child or a juvenile or a minor into almost like a diversion program, if you will. Sometimes we do charge them, and then we work with the Attorney General's office, Family Division, even after they're charged, to put them into a restorative justice program where we divert them away from doing time at DYA, and we provide that avenue.
All right, and so it's those programs I'm asking, do you still believe in those? Or do you find that those are effective for your purposes?
I think it's safe to say that it's a case-by-case basis, depending on the juvenile, the level of the offense, and whether, after the analysis of the juvenile, whether they would benefit from the restorative justice process.
All right. I want to congratulate you on some of these statistics that you've put in here. We know that the way the community feels, they feel that crime is on the rise and that every household is affected sometimes.
Yes, ma'am.
But your statistics, some of them are very impressive. For example, there was one that looked like 100% of, let me just see this.
Yes, that's the homicide.
Yes.
There was 8 reported homicides, 8 arrests, 8 cases were cleared.
Right. This, could you just talk a little bit about, so the Domestic Assault Response Team, the DART, cases forward was 359, cases closed 111, and then 53 arrests between family violence or criminal sexual conduct. So maybe there's I don't know. There's still a significant amount here that I don't know what happened to them.
Yes,
What would you say?
there's room, there's a lot of room for improvement in that area. But, also, Senator, don't forget that we were still also in a COVID environment. We were losing a lot, especially in that unit. We were losing a lot of officers to COVID, the COVID-related isolation, quarantine, because they were infected with COVID. Some of them were diverted because of the work that we had to do in the COVID response. So, we took a hit, with our response and our case closures because of our response to the COVID,
Okay.
the COVID environment.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate all the statistics that you've put in here. Those are very helpful for us, especially in establishing policy. Sometimes what we're working on don't match the statistics of what's actually going on out there. So I very much appreciate that.
Thank you, Speaker.
Could you just also tell me about so the forensics lab, the new DNA lab is open now? Is that what you're saying?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay, not yet.
Yeah, but we're, of course, as we project into the future, we need to hire more criminalists to staff that.
So do you expect that this year, this fiscal year?
The opening lab is set for sometime this fiscal year. The staffing is what we're working on to increase staffing at that facility.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I have a team of 4 people that will be leaving in July to the Hawaii DNA lab. They're an accredited lab. So we're working with them. We're sending 4 people over there to kind of do a work study for, I believe, 1 week. For 1 week. And we've been talking to the director of the Hawaii State DNA lab.
Okay. Okay, great. So, because
Because,
I can see
this
that
is-
you're trying
this
to
is,
build up your team there.
We are building
and
up the
so-
team.
okay.
We're sending the criminalists
Okay.
and a police lieutenant for policy and analysis. So we're looking at everything from equipment, staffing, legislation, and even possibly a fee schedule, if you will.
All right, and so then about these drug arrests. So your statistics that you put in here, thank you for these. You talk about, in 2019, 502 drug arrests.
Right.
But there, 9,000 criminal offenses, 9,000 arrests. And then drug offenses, 482, 502 arrests. That's 2019. So, and then 2020, it says GPD number of criminal offenses, 6,900, number of criminal arrests, 6,900, drug offenses, 682, and drug arrests, 624. Am I reading this right? That
No, I'll go back on this information. So I believe there's I don't think there's, I'll check again on the criminal arrests. I can get you updated numbers. But the number of drug arrests are correct for 2019 and 2020.
Okay, so when they report a drug offense versus a drug arrest, what's the difference? Is that like everything you've investigated
Right,
is a drug
yeah.
offense?
That could be drug offenses. That could be anything from an ice pipe to,
Okay.
seizures, both large and small.
So your arrest rate is almost 100%, it looks like. Is that
Yeah,
right?
or there could be multiple arrests sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah, in one case.
Okay. And you work with these task force, the federal has their own task force, and I know that you join in with them. Do you find that all that work adequate? Like what their role is versus what your role is, or how do you feel about that? Do you?
Yes, very much. I think, the Guam Police Department, for example, is part of the United States Postal Service Drug Task Force. And since we've been with that group, we've all noticed that there's an uptick in the number of confiscations and seizures of methamphetamine at the Postal Service. So there's value to it. And the other value, of course, that it brings is the federal asset forfeiture sharing program. So whatever cash, vehicles that are seized, we participate in that federal asset forfeiture sharing program. So it provides close to maybe $500,000 annually. Yeah, in money that we use to support our operations.
Do you believe that with the increase that you're requesting to increase officers, increase overtime, and increase retention, that we will be able in 2023 to see an increase in, the top of the drug
Yes.
chains arrests, perhaps?
Right, and we've talked about this, you and I have talked about this, that, we slowly chip away at the drug organizations, and we just continue to work from the bottom upward.
I know that you told me the challenge is that they're organized crime, so they're very organized, and
Yes.
that's what we're facing. And
Yes.
so that's why I guess I'm asking about these
And that's
teams
where
that you
that's
have
where the
formed.
value is, and that's where the value is in
Yeah.
working with federal partners, because they have stiffer penalties, especially with organized crime. Everything from the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, the OCDF cases, to RICO cases.
All right, and so do you feel that they are utilizing that their efforts are also, I don't know, maybe it's my memory, but I haven't heard of many arrests of those types of cases recently. Maybe because of COVID, right? But I'm not sure. I'm asking.
COVID, the complexity of, it's actually very complex cases that we're talking about when we're talking about RICO and OCDF cases. Yeah. But be that as it may, the Guam Police Department is very actively engaged with our task force officers at that level.
Okay. And I know you have very good investigators and that they've been very successful over the years that I've been watching, that, in investigations of some complex cases and in investigations of code cases, these results that you've shown us today also repeat that. So I want to congratulate you on all of that work.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Can you just clarify again, when you bring in the retired officers, what role are they going to play?
We have the unsolved homicide task force. We have boxes and boxes of unsolved cases that these guys probably investigated when they were actively engaged with the Guam Police Department. We definitely can use them to alleviate some of the administrative duties that are being performed by police officers at the precincts and other areas. I think that would be a better use for them. And some of them actually are looking forward to being in a patrol car, being out on the street, and doing some of the community relations building, if you will. Just going out there, stopping by the little skate park, talking to kids, talking to young adults, and just, providing good community service.
Okay, and then my last question.
But it's not that big of a number, I'll tell you right now.
Not, all right. And so you've got a significant number of people that retired in the years that you showed us, and then an equivalent number, so 27 retired, 27 resigned. And separated other job means another agency?
Other agencies, either federal or local. Right?
Okay, and so resigned doesn't include those that went to work for another agency. Is that right?
Yes, those that resign, yes.
Yeah, it does
That
not include those. It doesn't include you losing people to go work in the port or anywhere else.
Yes, when they resign from the Guam Police, when they transfer to another agency, that's a resignation. So whether it's a federal job or to another local job, we count it as a resignation.
Okay, and then what about the separated other job category? That one's 11.
What's that category?
Yeah, so you've got resigned and separated.
Separation can also be, is it by death? Or?
I just want to know how many we're losing
So
for
when-
other Gov Guam agencies, yes.
Okay, Anne Marie Cruz, acting ASO PC4 for federal programs. So at the time, we're collecting data over a couple of years, and so we can go back to 2019 and we'll see GG1s that say a person's resigned. We didn't necessarily start putting resign promotion to DPW. We just started doing that this fiscal year,
Okay.
so it could be a combination of both.
Okay.
Either they officially resigned from us to just retire and
Yes.
not work, or they did leave us to go to work at another entity.
I'd like to know that because remember we established this whole post commission to try to equalize, right? Skills, pay, and so that the retention at GPD, we were hoping that was going to help that, right? so that they wouldn't be leaving GPD just because of money? Yeah, so.
Yes.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, so do you feel that the incentive pay that you've received then is going to solve that? I mean, that still occurs, Chief? People are leaving GPD to go to other autonomous agencies or
Yes,
branches?
and I think it's safe to say that at least since the implementation, I can't really think of too many, I can't really think of people who actually left because of better pay. Actually, some of them just leave because they've been eyeing to go to another department. Like recently, I lost 2 people to the Guam Fire Department training. That's ongoing.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you, Chief, and thank you again for all of you and your work on, especially the front lines during all of COVID, your investigations, your efforts in drug interdiction. That's, I think, a huge issue for all of us in the community, and I thank you because we're relying on you. So,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Tello, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, and good afternoon to the GPD for being here. Chief, great presentation that you provided us, good insight. It's good on the statistics especially, that was brought up earlier. So going directly into the budget, do you have any prior year obligations at all?
the only prior year obligation that we are currently tracking that's in our books is for militaries, for payment for those that were in military leave from 2005 to 2011.
Okay.
We still owe the principal and all the interest and penalties that are associated with that principal.
If I'm not mistaken, it's about 339,953, is that correct?
That sounds about right.
Okay, but...
We just recently cleared out a good chunk of all our prior year obligations.
So my question is, since we've got those numbers, but what about the interest and penalties? Is that included in the 339,000?
No, they aren't. The
Do you know how
principal
much-
amount is what you have there on our prior year obligation listing that was submitted with the budget. There's no way we can project interest and penalties and fees. That actually has to be given to us by retirement, and that's calculated on a daily rate.
Okay, and how soon will you be, do you know how much that will be?
We can ask retirement for it. At the same token, it'll change. It'll continue to change every day as long as we don't make a final payment.
What about the other prior year obligations for 150,000 regarding the Garrido versus GPD?
Paid.
Civil service?
That's paid already.
That's been paid out already?
Yes, ma'am. I just
Okay.
paid that out.
Well, that's good to know. Do you have any carryovers from FY21?
I paid off Sayama, Bukar, and Garrido. I paid out Mortera, or at least we processed Mortera, and also, what was the last one? Sayama, Bukar, Garrido, Mortera. No, and Leon Guerrero.
Okay, so they've all been paid out. Do you have any carryovers from FY21?
Prior obligations?
No, not prior year obligations. Any carryovers from FY21? Any funding that you did not spend? Lapses, sorry.
Any lapses?
Yes.
No, we're not
lapses.
tracking any lapses for FY21. Right.
Okay, so in the salary increase that was awarded this year, what is the amount that you would owe to cover those increases in FY22?
Is that this one? So the total cost for the retention pay, whether the 10% or the 15% plus the 18%, is 2.2 million, $41,572. Right, this one?
This will carry you to the end of the fiscal year?
This one, right? 204. I'm sorry, yes, that's for one fiscal year.
For FY22, this
For
will
F-
carry it, and how were you able to pay for that?
Not 22, so that's 23.
I'm sorry, you're asking for 22?
Yes, sir.
We are currently paying for all these increases with our current budget,
Okay,
within our appropriation.
and it's 2.2 to carry you to the end of the fiscal year?
The projection for FY23, yeah, is 2,041,572.
Okay, so for FY22, since the time it's been implemented, the pay raises, it will cost you 2.2, and then going into FY23,
No, I don't have the number of what it cost us to date for FY22.
good, that's,
We projected for FY23 for the total fiscal year. We can, wait. So, right now, this one, the 1.6?
198,000.
No, this is for the promotions.
What is she asking?
How much are we spending for the, so the retention pay to date is costing $1,640,191. That's for FY22.
and this is for the pay raises that were given to the police officers, correct?
The retention pay, yes.
By the executive order, okay.
Right.
1.6 so far is what you're saying for 22. And then in
That's our-
FY23, that increase will be 2.2, or is it 2.4?
2.041.
Okay, 2.04?
Yeah, 2 million,
Yeah.
$41,572.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Has any of the positions that were vacant in FY22 this year that have been appropriated funding for those vacant positions, have any of them not been filled to this date?
There may be some positions that are not yet filled, but that's part of the recruitment process, especially for the police officer training positions.
And we appropriated the funding for those positions in FY22 budget?
Yes, whatever's being vacant, we're
Right.
trying to fill.
Okay, but if you're not able to fill them in FY22, then you'll still have this funding available?
Available in FY23.
Okay. Could
Right,
we
and we're
get-
continuing to recruit.
Yeah. Chief, could we get those numbers of those that you're not able to fill those positions, but we budgeted for in FY22, so we can get a number of how much is still available out there?
Yes, and we're working feverishly because we just graduated Friday.
Okay,
We're already geared up to start the next cycle in August.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And what about, Chief, the cameras that were issued to the police department? Remember the bill that was passed to give you $250,000 to cover for cameras? What is the status on that?
That money's still there. We've actually put that out for bid. No bidders.
So after almost 3
So,
years?
We put it out, we built the specs, we put it out. Nobody was interested. Feedback we got from the vendors, the money's not enough to sustain the program. So we're actually looking, because some of our precincts have outdated cameras and blind spots. And we have Central Precinct who has no cameras to monitor or for surveillance or to monitor the precincts. We're looking at, because it looks like there's sufficient money in that account to use it towards that end.
I'm just surprised because you get some of these condominiums that are, that have these cameras, and some of them gone to Micropac to get the cameras and the monitors and set up. I'm just surprised that nobody's come forward to provide you these services when they're doing it. I mean, they just did it to my building recently
Yeah.
and provided us the monitors, provided us the cameras, so I'm just really surprised.
Me too, Senator. I'm just as surprised as you are. Nobody bid, and we put it out.
Well, I hope you don't give up on that and keep trying for that, because
Okay.
I think there's, maybe it's due to COVID that, you know, they're just getting their supplies in, because we know there's been a delay in supplies on the island.
We'll update the specs and put it back out for bid, and we'll see what happens.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's going to be very helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, the miscellaneous services, I've noticed it was different from last year. In fact, it was about $130,000 difference, lower. Can you explain why this is a lower amount? And this is under the miscellaneous services, psychological services, K-9, medical and dental, copier machine, vehicle license, etc. You requested for 295 last year. This year, you're only requesting for 165,000. So it's a difference of $130,000. I was just wondering why it's lower.
I'm trying to follow you on the summary here, and you're talking about the miscellaneous cost for us. Okay, why did it go down? A lot of the appropriation that was here last year included some other grants, which we took out for this fiscal year and placed it in the appropriate box, which is the federal match requirement.
Okay. Okay.
But otherwise, it still funds the same purposes. It still funds the CVPR stipends, clothing allowance, and membership fees, and anything else that may come up under that category.
Okay, thank you, Anne Marie. And Anne Marie, with regards to utilities, and especially with the supplies and materials, mostly gas, for the vehicles, and the utilities, of course, power rates have gone up as well as gas rates have gone up, but the amount that you're requesting in the budget is staying the same. Have you made any
What we've been doing is we've been monitoring our utilities intake as well this fiscal year, and we seem to be on track with the dollar amounts we're asking for. If the rates do jack up between now and then, we may be short, but as it stands right now, the amount we're requesting for utility is spot on. Okay. With regards to the fuel costs, that one we've thrown up into supplies. It's not under miscellaneous. And if we're ever short in general fund, we also have the OVIS funding to look at as well.
I'm just really surprised that everybody's utilities have gone up. I mean, mine has almost doubled in cost, so I'm surprised that...
I can tell you that one of our costs on telephones alone, OTEC has been very efficient and proficient with us, trying to keep reducing the number of phones so we don't pay the number of lines. The dollar amounts went down on costs for the fiber lines. So those are things that are changing within the telephone, but it's still staying within the realm that we're asking.
I see, it's maybe offsetting. So regarding, Chief, the CVPRs, okay, how many, the budget request for 114,000, which is the same amount budgeted in FY22 for 23. So how many reservists are employed with GPD of these numbers, and how many reservists are active on a monthly basis?
So we have over 60 on the list, but I'll tell you no more than 20 every month that, since I've been chief, have shown up to work. So that's why we always projected about 100 some thousand, a little over, because it's based on what we're tracking as far as the number of reservists that actually show. So even when we increased it to 500, maybe 2 or 3 additional came in on a regular basis. But for the most part, we've been tracking close to 20 only, monthly.
Do you know, I mean, you have 60 that you have on I guess on your books, but you're saying only 20 is showing up. Do you know why that is? I mean, even when we increase the stipends for that.
Some of them actually, because of COVID also, they were some of them are like from customs, DOC, so they couldn't take the time off to come and work CVPR.
Okay. Anne-Marie, did you receive your reserves that were set aside in FY21? It was about $4 million.
The reserves are still in reserves. Our plan is to use it for any of the shortfalls that are happening within this fiscal year.
No, I'm talking about FY21.
FY21,
Yeah.
no, ma'am. As far as I know, I don't recall. Remember, we had an ASO before I stepped in real quick.
And then thank you.
Right. I wanted to add something on the CVPR situation. In as much as we have 60, we averagely pay out 18 that make the 42-hour requirement to get paid the stipend. But you do still have some that come in beyond the 18 that don't make the 42-hour requirement, therefore aren't entitled to the stipend pay.
Oh, I see. But as far as the reserve is concerned, can you look into that to make sure you received your full reserves that were taken away in FY21. It was about in FY20, about 4.3 that was reserved, taken from your account, set aside. So you might want to check to see if you still have that in reserve. Currently, right now, you have about $4 million that is set aside in reserve for FY22. That I do know, but you just want to verify that you have from last FY21,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
to cover that. Also, Chief, you received from, Guam Home Center as well as JMI Edison, donating the Yamaha motorcycles and the giant mountain bikes, etc. Has there been any other donations given to GPD?
So, I believe he's not here today, but Lieutenant Steve Amgan has been keeping track of a lot of the donations that have come into the Guam Police Department, especially during COVID. I mean, we received miscellaneous donations, masks, surgical masks, N95, some PPEs, some alcohol, hand sanitizers. So we received a lot of miscellaneous donations. I think one of the recent big donations was Dedero Precinct. They've got a new paint job, both in and out.
Yeah.
So that was recently donated, I think, by
Okay.
Black Construction. So that's one of the more sizable donations, but that's still a work in progress.
Uh-huh.
And so once that's all done, we'll package up the write-up to the governor's office.
Okay. It's good to know. The ARP funding that was allotted to you was $3.5 million to GPA from the ARP funding. And according to my records, GPD has not spent or encumbered any of these funds that
Right.
have been
We
allocated.
have not tapped into that
So what do you-
account yet.
And what do you have planned for this ARP funding of $3.5 million?
We're planning to use that to recruit more police officers and equipment associated with recruiting.
Which brings me to that, according to the spread here, you have GPD police recruitment. In FY22, I'm showing it was 0, but in FY23, you have 2,387,239.
Oh, well, that's because that's in line with Senator Moylan's law, where we have to budget for recruit cycle of 40 every fiscal year. So that's why in 22 there was no recruitment because we were just working off either carry forward funds or lapses,
The lapses.
or even federal grant funds, or even lapses within our current the current budget at the time. So we didn't budget for a recruit cycle in FY22, but it's budgeted as mandated by law in FY23. That's why it's a line item in the budget.
But yet you still have the ARP funding
Right,
on top of that.
that's right.
So it's a total of over $5 million for this.
Sounds about right,
Okay.
Senator. So
And
I mean, that means more
yeah.
police officers.
Yeah.
So beyond the 40, we can probably recruit 40 to 50 more under ARP. But again, it's just a matter of working with DOA because
Right.
that's where we're challenged because we're working with the staff up there. We understand that there's other things that come up that they have to work on too.
Okay, so it's not guaranteed you're going to get that year, right? These recruitments in, you just have the money available in case you do. Is that what you're saying? So you're holding on to this funding just in case you get additional recruitments?
No, we're holding on to that funding to hire police officers.
The overtime account, last year you had 648,323. This year you're requesting for 2,844,679. What is this huge increase
Sure.
attributed to?
So in the past budgets, there was never any budget for overtime. What we've done is just taken what we were able to do within the fiscal FY22 budget, and that's the only thing that was left. But if you look at our overtime expenditures, because of COVID, differential pay, overtime to increase presence out on patrol, COVID response, and non-COVID response as far as overtime, this budget actually now allows us to budget for overtime. It's a real true budget of what our needs are. And that $2.4 million is reflective of our current spending projections for overtime.
The governor transferred out of your department $377,000 to close out FY20, and then $146,464 to close out FY2021. Of course, you know what the reserves are set aside, but there was transfer out of your agency. Have you asked for any of this funding back that was transferred out, or at all? This was in FY. I know, Emery, you weren't here. You might want to look into this. The governor's office transferred these funds out of your agency.
What did she transfer?
FY21 and FY2020. So you might want to look into that. It was $377,340 in FY20 to close out, and then an additional $146,464 to close out for FY21. Small amount, but every amount counts. That's what I say. Lastly, I know Senator Brown wanted to be here. She had a doctor's appointment, and she always asks this question. Has there been any funding set aside for drug testing other than, bringing somebody, a new recruit in, and they get their first drug testing? But I'm talking about, throughout the agency. How much funding have you set aside for drug testing?
So in FY 2021, we started with a random drug testing, and some of those people weren't present until FY 2022, and so we've done some random drug testing again this fiscal year. In FY 2023, we will do random drug testing as we usually do every year, and the funding will come out from under miscellaneous category.
Miscellaneous?
Yes.
Okay. How much money have you set aside normally for that every year?
Well, it's $45 a head for
Right.
the random drug testing.
Right.
So we'll usually spend about $20,000 a year.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure Senator Brown would be appreciative of those numbers. I greatly appreciate the testimony, the answers you provided to my questions, and definitely the statistics that you brought forward to us. But, I'm sure there's much more that you would like to do for our community to keep us all safe, and it's providing you the means for that. So, I know I'll do my very best when it comes to GPD. We all here try and do our best. It's about the safety of our community. And other than that, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you, Mr. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chief?
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Moynihan, and you'll be followed by Senator Nelson. So, Senator Moynihan, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panel. Chief, that excellent report. I appreciate that. I recognize the efforts that GPD has done so far and what they're doing with especially the CIS and SIS units. That's good to know. The big concern, as you brought up, is the loss of officers, right, from 2019 to present. 113, if I understood correctly. Thank you for reminding us about the recruitment process now and placing that in the budget. That's very helpful that we itemize this to budget for this purpose.
Right. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so we also recognize that the increase in wages for the peace officers by the administration, when the late Dr. Fee had pointed out something important for us to look at, and I'm wondering with the increase, do you see this discrepancy is still happening between the different peace officer agencies? Please give me in your own words, what do you think? Of course, the increase in salary is helpful, but have we solved the problem with the discrepancies between agencies?
So I think the salary, the 18% increase did go a long way in solving some of the disparity between pay. We've got to remember, in addition to the Guam Police Department across the board, the 18%, the Guam Police Department just itself as an agency, not realized by the other agencies, is 10% or 15% retention pay. So it's really 28% if you look at it. A police officer trainee up to a Sergeant 2 got a 28% pay increase. The lieutenants up to the majors got a 42% pay increase because of the 18 plus the 15, so 32% pay increase.
Okay, I appreciate that. Understood. At one time, we had the discussion about how GPD helps behavioral health and regarding folks that have issues, right, and needing medical treatment or to be diagnosed by behavioral health. And there were some questions about the hours that the officers will have to put into that before they're released and behavioral health is willing to work for them. There was the discussion about how soon the officer can leave that and turn it over to behavioral health. I think Officer Chong Major Chong was helping me on that one as well. So I'm just wondering if that situation was resolved, or was there additional things we need to do on legislation side to help improve that situation for you folks?
So I think we've resolved that issue because we're working with them to develop that safe haven concept where there is a safe place for them to be dropped off, and kind of skips the lengthy process of having to go through the medical review process up at GMH ER. And also now with the Mobile Crisis Response Team, they've actually been called out twice, the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's Mobile Crisis Response Team, the MCRT. And their process is to notify us so that we have awareness of where they're going and what they're doing and who they're meeting with. Should it escalate from a non-threatening to a threatening situation where the client may be in need of having the police officer present. Because before it was just call GPD 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Now we have a mechanism in place to call a mobile crisis response team at those hours of the day to help us respond to these calls, because they're really non-police presence necessary.
Right, the idea was to get the police officer back on the street or their
Right, to keep them more in the street as opposed to working on these mental health call-out issues, right? And it's a work in progress. It just started not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks, and it's still going through its phases.
Okay, good,
Right.
good to hear. I appreciate now that you identified the overtime on your budget. That's really helpful. So we can help you achieve your overall goals, what you're stating to build the force and to get our equipment and everything. And this way, when we itemize the OT, we can focus more of your budget to what you need to establish your end vision. What I'm also wondering also is regarding the executive security. We know that's it's necessary, and through past administrations and future administrations, GPD has done an excellent job for the executive security. The amount is, of course, GPD has to work that, but currently the executive budget, who's asking for this, does not pay for this. The executive security is paid out of GPD's budget.
Right.
Right. Which is fine. I would prefer the customer paying for their services coming from different departments, but this is how it goes, so that's okay. I don't have any issue about how much the amount should be, because that's up to GPD depending on the threat and the travel and so forth. That's all fine. What I like to see though in the budget is a budgeted amount, a projected amount, so we can focus OFB can focus the rest of their budget on your operational and your department's needs to get your vision going. So just like the overtime, that's a separate budget. Just like Erica's house and Christina's crime victims assistance unit, it's an identified budget. Just like the recreational boating and safety program, that's an identified budget. So the executive security should be an identified budget so the legislature can help you. And if it's going to be greater, we can always come back and provide assistance. But I think it's just difficult to budget for your long-term goals and visions for the department to grow through recruitment and non-sworn employees and civilian volunteers and reserve program and vehicle fleet and fixed assets if you have no identified amount for how much you actually pay for executive security. Because it's taken away from your operational costs. But this way, you can budget better for your operational costs, your CIP programs, whatever you have to do, your recruitment. And if it goes a little over, just come back to the legislature. But I also feel there's, not to point out any administration, but I also feel if they don't have a budget, then it's like an open checkbook also. If we keep it within budget, identify certain things, then your customer, which is the governor's office, executive security, right? And this is for how many people, by the way?
Order, sir. There's 15 officers assigned there.
To-
1-5.
To provide security for how many people?
2 buildings, 3 people.
Okay. So Department of Administration, through a FOIA request, gave us an amount, total spent for Government of Guam on executive security from GPD budget for the first and second quarters of fiscal year 2022. The executive security expenditure, including overtime, was $825,000, right? And then it goes into overtime for the second quarter and off-island trips too. So it all adds up, but that's, you wouldn't know, you're taking that directly out of your, like, your overall budget. When,
Right.
but
Because, well, sir, they are sworn officers of the Guam Police Department. And so it could be Kenneth Castro today. It could be somebody else tomorrow. Because they're all part of the GPD budget. And because it's our duty under, as the Guam Police Department, and it's historically and traditionally been the Guam Police Department that is tasked to provide security for the governor, lieutenant governor. So I'll tell you right now that, you know, the lieutenant governor doesn't travel with security when he goes off island. You know, so there is cost savings by this administration, you know, by not sending, the lieutenant governor chooses to travel without executive security. So, you know, there is cost savings that's used by the Leonguartenor administration also as well. As much as they're spending, there's also savings. And so, you know, that's part and parcel of our responsibility as the Guam Police Department to ensure the safety and security of our leaders, our heads.
And I'm glad GPD does that, and
Right.
it's the right unit to do it, of course, right?
Yeah.
And we provide a fine job for our security of our executive branch. The cost savings is also very helpful. But I just see this, and I want to work with OFB to say, let's itemize this amount. I'm not saying that it should be capped at a certain amount. We just want GPD to tell us, at a minimum, I would need this. Or somehow our customer, which is executive branch, is projecting to do this and this. Or the threat level increased and therefore I had to get more money. But if you start at a certain budget requirement, like what you do with overtime, you budgeted for overtime. Like what you do with Erica's house, what you do with the boat and safety. There's a budget projected amount for that. Start someplace so we can provide you more money for your overall vision of what you want the department to do. So I'm just really stressing that point, and I hope that.
Yes, sir.
Right. I have no quorum with the executive branch. They must have security. That's a good thing. GPD is the finest force to do that for the executive branch. How they travel, that's all up to them. But it's really trying to help GPD from the legislature to give you the money you need. And if more is needed, that's great. If the governor decides, you know, I don't need security, that's great too. All up to you folks to balance out. Okay, so I'm hoping.
And my job is to make sure that whatever the cost is, it's gonna, not whatever the cost, but making sure that they stay within a reasonable amount of cost, understanding what they cost yearly to operate, and make sure that they stay within that budget as well. Because they do report to me, and I'm responsible for them.
That's what we need to see in the budget. That will be helpful for us to understand that.
Yes,
if you
sir.
itemize that. Thank you,
Yes,
Chief.
sir, Senator Moylan. Thank you for those questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Senator Nelson, do you have any question for the panel, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, ma'am.
I do have a question. It's just on your last slide on the highlights on some of the things that you'd like to do for the police department. You mentioned 4 action items, and the first one is vision of growing the department through recruitment of sworn and non-sworn employees. Your second item is strengthen the civilian volunteer police reserve excuse me, program. Your third one is increase vehicle fleet and fixed assets. And then your fourth one is improving the conditions and standards through the entire department. Are all of these action items included within the budget request that you are requesting today?
Yes, ma'am. So item 1, recruitment of sworn and non-sworn employees. That's all the recruiting and the promotion that we're going through right now. And that's the stuff that I highlighted in my oral testimony or the written testimony, the 20-plus page document that I gave you.
What is the cost of that?
Promotions.
Yes, so you're going to recruit first. So what is your cost of recruitment? Is that the $2 million? And do you already have a pool to pull from to start your next cycle for your
Okay.
recruitment?
So if we were to recruit 40 police officer trainees, that cost is $2.2 million.
Do you have a pool already?
Yes, we have
What is the count?
eight on board, 16 on the rest of the certification list. So if all 16 make it, we should have a recruitment cycle of 24 for August. But we understand that DOA has done testing already for another 300 plus applicants. So I think we're on
You're on track?
We're going to get to 40.
Okay,
Yeah. So, crossing our fingers, we're going to get there.
okay. So did you apply the same practice for the FY22 budget on your recruitment strategy?
That's built into the 2023 budget.
For 2022, did you
For
apply this?
2023. So,
I'm asking if you applied the same practice for your FY 2022 budget?
no, so for the FY 2022 budget, I believe we're using carryover funds for recruitment.
Okay,
And also we have a COPS grant that we're also using, that we're tapping into.
okay. And then the recruitment of sworn and non-sworn employees, what does that look like as far as budgetary?
So the non-sworn employees, some of the recruitment that we have is for criminalist 1. So when we promote the criminalist 1 up to criminalist 2 or criminalist 3, that opens up the bottom. So we get to recruit. The purpose of that recruitment, again, is the growth of the Forensic Science Bureau and the staffing of the DNA lab.
So that's it?
Right, and also law enforcement dispatchers.
Okay,
We've lost a handful of dispatchers, either to resignation or retirement.
okay. And what is the cost?
For law enforcement dispatchers,
For the whole item for the sworn and non-sworn employees, you said you're promoting, right? You said you were looking to
yeah,
promote.
so
What is the cost?
the top. So the cost for promotions for civilians in FY 2022 is $198,224. For, I'm sorry, that's overall for the law enforcement promotions to carry us until the remainder of FY 2022. For FY 23, that promotion, which we already factored into our budget request, it's 2.6? 2.6? Yeah. $2,657,895.
Okay. And then your increased vehicle fleet and fixed assets?
Yeah, so increased vehicle fleet, that's the OVIS funds. And we have also some federal grants and asset forfeiture funds that we can tap into to increase our vehicle fleets.
So are you going to need additional appropriation for this, or a certain match for the federal funds?
No, we're not tracking any need for any appropriations for cars at this time.
So you're going to tap into federal?
Federal grants
Appropriation.
and the local OVIS fund, the Police Patrol Vehicle Revolving Fund.
Okay, and what?
And then we can, we've had a commitment from the governor also to look at other funding sources like the last vehicle fleet, which was DOI funds.
Okay. And what is the cost for that?
Each car is anywhere from $50,000 to $65,000.
And how many are you looking to attain?
We'd like to probably get anywhere from 10 to 20 new patrol cars. It is always good to get a new fleet of vehicles whenever we can.
Does this include the maintenance package? Like a maintenance?
Yes, it comes with the full maintenance package. And, you know, the life cycle recommended for police patrol car is 3 years. On Guam is 10. Sometimes longer, because that's how long it takes to find money.
But you found the money already, right? Is that correct?
The governor, lieutenant governor, BBMR always finds me money when we work with them.
And then last, you're strengthening the Civilian Volunteer Police Reserve Program. Can you talk a little bit about that and the anticipated cost?
Yeah, so, you know, I think the hardest part with the recruitment for Civilian Volunteer Police Reserve is that they are recognized as Category 1 peace officers under post. And so it's very hard to just pick them up off the street because there's a lot that goes into it now, because they have to have the same training and expertise as a police officer in the Guam Police Department. So pretty much if the police officer takes 1 year to train and OJT and all that, it's probably going to take a reserve longer because we're working with people that are working full-time. And usually when we run a reserve cycle, it's Monday to Friday, 5 to 10.
Okay.
At night. But it's very difficult. But if we get them, our intention is really to look and target those that have completed either a criminal justice, associate's degree, or even those that went through the BELEA or the Criminal Justice Academy at the at GCC, because they come almost there.
Okay, so you mentioned that as one of your action items. And so do you see a pool of CVPRs coming in?
So we've gone through all the applicants so far, and of the 20 plus applicants that submitted CVPR applications, about only 6 of them meet that criteria. So we're still trying to recruit more so that we have a meaningful cycle when we start one.
Okay, and then what specifically do you mean by improving the conditions and standards throughout the entire department?
You know, Senator, it's anything that we can to improve morale. And you know, there's certain programs that we have in place really that have improved the workplace environment. You know, for example, we have the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act grant, LEMWA. And so LEMWA was meant to address some of the issues and concerns by the law enforcement community, because police officers, you know, were committing suicide at alarming rates. So the LEMWA grant was created by the Department of Justice to provide programs for police departments to set up peer support and peer counseling services. And since its inception 2 years ago, we've used them for critical incident stress debriefing for like the case at Two Lovers Point with the dead infant and the suicidal mother. We've used them on the beheading case down in Santa Rita. We've used them when they've responded in officer-involved shootings. Because, you know, no longer do we have the stigma that, hey, boy, just suck it up and go home. You know, you're a policeman, that's your job. You know, we realize and we recognize that our officers also are exposed to this trauma, and it affects them psychologically and mentally, and that we need to provide for them as good leaders.
And how are you going to do that?
We have a peer support program. Like I said, they've responded to it. We continue to support that program. And, you know, we do that day in and day out. They're available 24/7.
So are these fellow officers or are these mental health professionals?
They're officers working alongside mental health professionals. If it's something like a critical incident stress debriefing, we actually bring in Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness experts, either psychologists or their other professionals. So we work closely with them.
Okay, and what is the cost?
The cost?
Yes.
There's no cost. It's federally funded. The programs and the training is federally funded.
So the only thing that's going to be funded by local funds is going to be the...
Just the salary of the employee, which is, you know...
The recruitment and the promotions, correct?
Right.
Okay. And are you doing your... Do you have a promotion board?
Not yet, because it's all dependent upon when we get the certification list. for that particular position. So like right now, we have received cert packages for the Administrative Services Officer, which we're going to replace because ours resigned. We have Program Coordinator 1 positions that are vacant, and some of the civilian promotion positions are the Auto Mechanic Leader, Storekeeper 2, and Payroll Clerk 2.
Okay, so how about for your officers?
So the only cert package that is going to be ready is the police captain. The police major was announced and is closing soon. And then next after that, of course, will be the lieutenants, the sergeant 2, sergeant 1, police officer 3, and police officer 2.
And these are all placed in the budget, and we're going to see these promotions happen in FY23, correct?
Yes, they're all budgeted for and accounted for in FY 2023, and all the costs associated with it has been budgeted for.
Okay, very good. And you have a selection criteria? Did you do a notice to all the officers letting them know that there is going to be promotions and that they need to ensure that all of their records are updated for competitive
Yes,
applications?
we have provided notice to them at every weekly or bi-weekly command staff meeting.
Okay,
Let the officers know promotions are coming up. Make sure they read the promotion announcement or get the criteria in place so that they know beforehand that they're ready for that next promotion.
okay, and you made it official, you have a memorandum put out, and with the time, a schedule of when they're going to submit their
Yes,
packets, and the board is going to
the
take
personnel
these?
officer has an email address called everyone@gpd.guam.gov, meaning everyone at GPD gets the email when there's an announcement.
Okay, and when was the last time, because in some of the agencies, we have some of the officers that haven't been promoted or haven't been given an opportunity for promotion for like 6 years or more. So when was the last time that we saw GPD do this call out for promotion?
2017 was our last promotion. It's 5 years ago, so
Okay.
I think
It's overdue.
It's time that we do another round of promotions.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Are you sure in the budget that you have everything that you need to ensure the safety of our island?
Yes, Senator, and if you find any more additional funding, we will gladly take it.
Well,
Really?
you
I mean, we can use
requested-
it for operations, buy cars, hire more people, fund overtime.
Yeah, I would like to. I would like to look for more additional funding, but if, we would like to see a plan for that funding and where it's going to go, right?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Whenever there's more funding, there will be a plan.
Okay. All right, very good. So the interesting thing of your personnel officer trainees is that you had 17 leave the cycle in mid-cycle. Is there perhaps some kind of strategy you have in place for retention during the cycle training? Or are they just don't have the backbone or the muster to endure the training that you give them?
Man, this issue of people leaving midway, early on, is decades of discussion. But I think we've actually met with Director Byrne and DOH, and we're trying to figure out if there's a mechanism that we can put in place. For them to maybe sign an agreement, like a payback provision. So we're really exploring that, and we're hoping to have, if there is something that we can legally do to put a payback provision in place, we'd like to surely get that thing in place before the next cycle, because it costs a lot of money to train a police officer.
Okay, yeah, that's my concern, right, is the commitment that they have going in. And then,
Senator Major Charlo, just to segue into that, like the chief mentioned earlier with regards to recruitment, right, there's a myriad of issues. It's kind of like the military where some people come in, it's not necessarily for them. And then like he also mentioned is the pay. And the fix, or I guess the approach to that was to put the recruitment and retention strictly for GPD. Although law enforcement-wide was given an 18% raise, so to kind of alleviate that disparity, the governor also implemented that 10 and 15% recruitment and retention, to keep, the officers. But, Like the chief mentioned, I had two guys assigned to dispatch, and the minute they heard a call that was very traumatizing, the guy said, "Man, I'm sorry, I'm quitting effective immediately." So there's a myriad of circumstances and mitigating factors that, forces or have these individuals that are coming into the department to resign. So it could be pay, it could be, it's just not their cup of tea. And then others are saying, you know what, the work hours are, not conducive to, my family stuff. So there's all these different things, but I think the key thing that we've been experiencing from our organization was that recruitment and retention, hence the 10 and 15% recruitment and retention pay for strictly GPD. So that's, I guess if you want to call that a strategy that the department is using is that, for that recruitment and retention.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then for the 17 personnel during the police officer training cycle that left, was that before or after the increase in pay?
Oh, most of that is before.
Before, okay.
Probably, I think 100% of that is before.
Okay, because, the reason why I'm asking these specific questions is that it almost looks like you're asking for a little more than a third increase just for
Yes.
basic personnel operations alone. And if we're losing police officers or police officer trainings, then the government loses out on that money. So it could be
Right.
several $1 million that we just lose out on. And so I hope that,
So,
you keep it
I
real
mean-
with them and
I
tell
mean,
them
if-
they're
if-
going to
yeah,
have to work
yeah.
really hard.
And if we're talking about real, Senator, we've gone from $11.87 to $14. And I think one is substantial, and two, it's really a really good increase that, that benefits the officers. And it does, I think, work for their recruitment and
Okay, very
retention.
good. Well, I support your budget.
Thank you for your support.
It's like $16 million more than the previous year.
Yes, ma'am.
But no, we need our community to be safe. I know that you are severely understaffed. I know you have officers that have been working on like 6 to 7 day shift cycles, and that's not good for their mental health either. But I want to thank you for your leadership, all of you today, and thank you to our officers for the job that they're doing, just trying to work with what we're appropriating for them to keep our island community safe, and hopefully FY 2023 we'll see more officers on patrol and be a more proactive force rather than reactive.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your support, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Senator Adler, do you have any questions for the panel, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do. Thank you, Chief, and for your staff to be here for the budget presentation. I noticed during the testimony that you said you were an acting ASO?
It's an additional assignment.
Additional assignment?
Yes.
I see. But Chief, you don't have an ASO on board. How long is this?
She actually just resigned May 20th.
May
Couple weeks
20th?
ago. Yeah, a couple weeks
Do you
ago.
have a announcement going out for?
We're interviewing this week.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yes,
because
sir.
hopefully you can get ASO on board as soon as possible.
Yes,
then.
Ms. Amory said, yes, please, hopefully.
Okay.
very
I'm reading your thing here, and it goes that GPD is currently working on recruiting 16 retirees as limited term appointment officers. And what positions would they be filling in, or what would they be coming on board as?
Yeah, so I talked about, that was actually asked earlier by Senator Tsaidwi. So
right.
I think some of the ideas we have is, of course,
No, I mean, what level are they coming in as police officer 1s, 2s?
Sergeant. Sergeant 1? Sergeant 2, if they retired as a Sergeant 2 or below, they come in at the Sergeant 1 pay. If they retired at a Lieutenant or higher, they come in at the Sergeant 2 pay.
Okay. So would that take away from the current positions that you're promoting for on the police sergeant 1s and the police sergeant 2?
No, it's just a reflection of the pay that they're coming in. We're not filling those positions that we're talking about that's vacant that we're going to fill.
And then where would the funding for these 16 retirees come from?
All the funding source that we're using, Senator, is from our current appropriations.
Your current appropriations.
Yes, sir.
And that's with the $10,000 bonus
Yes.
for it. So you have
Yes,
an
sir.
additional $160,000 in your own current budget for that.
Well, 16 is the high end. We're still going through the screening process.
I see. Okay. And then, you also said that DOA is, I guess, that's where the blockage is for the recruitment of police officers?
No, I wouldn't say that, sir, necessarily. I think because, the Department of Administration by design and all the other line agencies, we're all going through the same agency for recruitment. So not necessarily a blockage, but, everything, we look at everything COVID. We look at, the COVID response. We were kind of stuck on COVID for the past 2 years. We're just kind of unraveling right now and working through. But DOA has actually tested over 300 applicants in the past couple weeks, which is what's going to get us to the recruitment process. All of our cert lists are starting to come out from them, for our different vacancies, from the ASO, the PC1. Considering the ASO just left a couple weeks ago and we have a cert package already, I think that speaks to the efficiency of DOA.
Well, I hope that,
their
because you have the ear of the governor and the lieutenant governor, like you said, that they would be able to tell DOA to, process these positions, most especially for a law enforcement agency,
Yes.
quicker than what they would do for a normal agency. Because, we see it in the papers every day. Every single day we see crime is rising.
Absolutely.
Whether it be family violence, sexual assault, burglary, whatever it may be. So I think that DOA needs to step up their recruitment process for GPD most especially, because crime is not going down out there. And I think that the governor and the lieutenant governor both should be able to tell Director Byrne to come in and say, hey, you know what? We need to process these GG1 faster, or we need to do recruitment testing faster. Whatever it takes to get you the personnel that you need so that you'll be able to fulfill and see what you wanted to do in your highlights. And because I just don't see it. I
Okay.
honestly don't see it, Chief.
Okay.
And, we sit here and we can just talk about what is good, right? What we're doing, what we want to see done. But what's not happening is the protection of the people out there. That's what's not happening, because we're slow on recruitment and we're slow in processing. So I think that, we need to regroup, go back, have the governor, and you need to be forceful with the governor to have the director come in, and you guys sit down and find out what's the problem. Because I could understand if you say, well, the problem is the people that are coming in are testing hot on drugs, or they can't pass a psych eval, or things like that. But when you come in and you say that, well, they did testing for 300, but we're waiting for them to send us the listing.
Yeah.
We need to move faster.
True. That's to an extent a true statement, sir. But I'll tell you though, some of the challenges we have is the applicant.
Yeah, and
So I'm telling you, this list that we have, there's 16 plus the 8, 24, but that's from a pool of like 132 applicants.
when I saw the graduation of the new recruits, I was taken back. There was only 7 GPD officers that graduated out of that whole class.
5. That was
Okay, 5.
That was by design, sir.
By design?
Yes. Because we already had those recruits on board, but the other law enforcement agencies who have not been in a recruit training environment for decades asked me if they could include their recruits in my training. And why would I say no to a fellow law enforcement agency, to not grant them that opportunity for us to train with them? And people look up to the Guam Police Department for its training curriculum.
Oh, absolutely. And they should, because the Guam Police Department is the law enforcement agency of the island.
It's the premier law enforcement agency of the island.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was taken back here when it was saying, and you're getting 4 GIAA police officers detailed for no more than 1 year. So obviously, one of two things are happening. Either they don't have enough work at GIAA, or they're overstaffed with police officers up at GIAA. So for them to give you 4 of their officers for 1 year says a lot. I mean, I agree with my colleague. We need to support the budget for the Guam Police Department. But what is the administration doing to ensure that you get the tools, Chief? You get the tools that you need to ensure that your men and women in blue and your civilian employees are taken care of. When I was looking at your section here on the for the Executive Order 2021-01, 18% adjustment pay, 15% retention pay LTs to majors, and 10% retention pay police officer trainees to sergeant twos. Did the executive branch have, or did the governor have a discussion with you as to how the pay, the retention pay should be factored in, or how, what the percentage should be? I mean, because do you have a problem keeping lieutenants to majors on board? Has there been a mass exodus of majors and lieutenants to majors?
Yeah, I had 3 captains vacancies all at one time. Myself, Captain Joe when he went to DOC.
Yeah, but Captain Joe is back now,
Captain
right?
Ken Mantononia retired. So yeah, we're growing the department, but we're also losing police officers. You got to remember, a lot of us here in this table are ready to retire at any time. So that 18% retention pay, I'm retaining them.
Oh, definitely.
So it helps.
I don't disagree with that,
Yeah.
Chief. You don't have that disagreement frame. But what I'm saying is, when you got the man that's out in the street, the police officer 1 or the sergeants and those guys that are out there,
Yeah. So to that point,
it's like
Senator,
a topsy-turvy, we gave...
Yes, and if you look at it, from the outset, and I'm not the one that did the study. The study was done by the Department of Administration.
So then they didn't get your
My job
input?
is just to implement what they recommended.
So
or
they
what
didn't
the
get your
government-
input whatsoever on this study for this retention pay? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't speak to them about it, yeah. So
But they didn't reach out to you and said, Chief, what is it that you need so that we can ensure that the men and women in blue are taken care of from bottom up?
Well, I
They
think the
didn't.
retention pay in and of itself is taking care of the men and women of the Guam Police.
Obviously,
Because-
it's not, because people are still leaving the department.
Well,
That's the concern.
I'm not tracking anybody leaving since we implemented the pay raise. Yeah. Matter of fact, one guy who decided to retire changed his mind and came back. The officers the police officer trainings, like I said, $11.87 to $14. A police officer 1 now after 1 year goes up to $18. That is substantial, considering they would have been stuck at $12 had we not had this pay raise. So I think it's gone a long way in doing its job in retention. And the other thing about what we're doing in FY22, if we talk about the rest of the department, Senator, is we are promoting civilians. We have not promoted civilians in decades. I have dispatchers who have worked up there for 15, 20 years, never been promoted. I'm promoting them. This administration is promoting them. We are promoting civilians. Hasn't been done. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, that's good to hear, and absolutely it should be done. But I think that, when we talk about what the department needs, we need to just go beyond what you currently have. And how, like when you bring these 16 officers back, if the number is 16, are they going out on patrol, or are they going to stay behind the desk, or what are they going to do? Because we need people out on the streets.
Yes, and when we bring them back, we put him behind the desk to get that young guy on the desk out on the street. And that's really the aim of this, is because so that we don't
So we're
lose
taking a
these-
uniform officer to put behind the desk so we can get another uniform officer out onto the street.
Well, the only alternative is to hire other people to fill that requirement.
So then, you said that
But I mean,
you
we're
did
looking at-
promotions for civilians, so
We're
don't you
looking at a
think
s- we're
those
looking at a stopgap.
civilians that promoted, you'd be able to get more civilians to get behind the desk and get the officers out onto the
Right.
streets?
Yes, and that's the intent, is to promote up so that we can fill the bottom.
Okay, so you did promote civilians, right?
We are promoting civilians. We're going through it now.
You're going through it now?
Yes, sir, we are.
So we should be expecting then civilian promotion, civilian recruitment and hiring to fill those positions
Yes, sir,
that are
absolutely.
filled with,
So a good example is our how we're building capacity at the Forensic Science Bureau because of the opening of the DNA lab and the increase of services. So we're promoting the criminalist 1 to criminalist 2, the criminalist 2 to 3. So what happens is now we can fill the bottom, the criminalist 1 positions, and they're also leaving me, some of our civilians leave me, like last year we lost 2 criminalist 1 that we were hoping to promote, but they found other opportunities. So even in the civilian role, sir, we are competing with other employers.
okay. The Speaker Terlahi brought it up about your special, I guess your task force, right? How many officers do you have out of the department into task force, perhaps like with the FBI, DEA, things like that?
I have 2 full-time at the FBI, 1 part-time. I have, Major? I have 1 at U.S. Postal Service Task Force. Yeah, we have 7 officers altogether in the task forces.
On all the different task forces?
Right, all the
7
federal law enforcement task forces, right?
So wouldn't it be prudent to bring those officers back and go to those different federal agencies and have them assign one individual to GPD to have this task force? I mean,
Not-
it's done in the states.
Right, but not necessarily, sir, because there's value in putting officers at the task force.
Yeah, you're not taking them away from the task force. So what you're doing is you're getting the federal government to give up a person instead of GPD giving up 7 personnel to these different task forces.
Well, historically, there's a lot of value with the Guam Police Department being the task force officer to the federal agency. A lot of it comes down to especially the asset forfeiture sharing agreement. We receive over $500,000 because of our involvement in these various task forces. Everything from cars, cash, even now cryptocurrency. I don't even know how we're going to convert that to actual cash. But I mean, we've actually seized millions of dollars in cryptocurrency with our task force officers. Like I said, $500,000 in money that's waiting that we receive annually. Cars, training, advanced training. I mean, everything from DEA task force officers academy to advanced digital forensics. I mean, I have officers who can rip apart a cell phone.
So
and
all
not-
that would go away if you were to take your officers and place them back into GPD and request that every federal agency, be DEA, FBI, to have
Because-
their
yeah.
officers come down to GPD.
No, because it's by virtue of us being there that we receive the training, that we receive the asset forfeiture sharing agreement. So there's value to it. I honestly think there's value to it. There's always been value to it over the decades that many of us here can attest to.
Okay. All right. Interesting. The new vehicles that you'll be getting, you were mentioning that I guess your police cars will be about $50,000 to $65,000 each.
Yes, sir.
What kind of vehicles are those?
Anything from a Dodge Charger to a Ford Interceptor. And we actually, I think, did we approve the IDIQ for electric vehicles? No, not yet. Yeah, and we're even looking, exploring at maybe even electric vehicles. Yeah, if
Do we even
that's-
ha- do
No,
we
not
even
for,
have
maybe
the-
not for patrol use, but maybe for like criminal investigation, right? To go do follow-ups. DART can use electric vehicles. Easy on the, save money on gas. I don't know if there's any savings because you have to plug it. I don't know, because the cost of power going up.
Yeah, so
We'll know when we start to look at any cost savings, any real cost savings to electric vehicles.
Okay.
I mean, we're exploring electric motorcycles.
But, you know, that's the question, right? Is that you're looking more towards electric vehicles, electric motorcycles, which is great because then we'd be able to save on gas. But do you have the personnel to maintain these vehicles, maintain these motorcycles? I mean, you're lacking a lead mechanic already, and 90% probably of your vehicles are being at the dealer for repairs and maintenance. So what is it that the mechanics then do at GPD?
They can do the regular
The
routine
regular
maintenance, change the oil, change the tires, pick up the car when it's broke down and decided to roll. So that there's still a need for mechanics. Yeah. But
so-
yeah, you're right. You know, a lot of these
So
cars
do they get additional training for these vehicles that are coming out now that are computer advanced vehicles, and what kind of training do they get?
Unfortunately, I'm down to one mechanic too because the last mechanic quit. So yeah, we're that's an area that we're trying to improve on.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to pick up your maintenance crew again and, you know, get them back out there and
Yes, sir.
do what they can for the department.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Did you have a question? Did you have a question or a comment?
Major Yadrin.
Major Chagla?
I was just going to talk about the fact that I know you're talking about the different things. So for us and us at the Services Bureau, that's what we try to do. You know, so we try to look at electric, you know, motorcycles, electric vehicles, because it is. But until we do the study, until we get those things, we're really not going to know whether or not is it cost efficient for the government.
Right.
But we won't know unless we try it, right? So yeah, until all these different studies, you know, they give us, you know, an opportunity to try it out, because what might work in California or North Carolina, it's probably not going to work on Guam, right? Because, you know, the environment that we're living in. But, and like the chief mentioned this, right? It's that, you know, it's part of the government. We've been in long enough to know this, and we're doing everything that we can, and understandably so with the rest of the government, right? It's all part of this government process, and as long as, you know, we're going to do what we can to maximize that, and the chief does. When there's an issue in my shop, I give him a call, and it's usually done things. So we're doing everything that we can. Now, if there's certain things that need to be addressed or maybe need to be tweaked, trust me, we sit down as a group and we discuss it and we move forward. So we're doing everything that we can. As far as the chiefs trying to get these things done, we're doing multiple things all at one time. So yes, we're trying to maximize everything that we have, whether it's personnel, equipment, and training. And I'm going to tell you, just to close it out with this task force, yeah, the benefit of sending the officer there, and I know because I used to work at narcotics, and the amount of trainings that I was able to get for our guys, the equipment that we got for free because we didn't have to spend a dime on very high-tech equipment with the training, there's just no, the value for it is immense. There's just no comparison. We're getting more by putting one officer there because we can get 3 or 4 guys trained on the different types of intelligence type and tracking type devices. We would have not been able to afford that on the regular general fund. Plus, and the way the asset forfeiture works is a certain percentage. If an officer puts in 75% of a $100,000, let's say, asset, we're getting 75 grand. That's just the way it works. So that's the reason. That's the purpose, like the chief said, on why the why the task forces we assign these officers, because the turnaround and the cost analysis and the benefit for the Guam Police Department is a lot better. We will gain more. It's never a thing where, in my many years working with the task forces, I've never seen a situation where, oh my God, they should bring the federal LEO to the Guam Police because it's more benefit. It's always been the other way around. I've benefited from them. I've gone to numerous, trainings at no cost to the department. All the department had to do is pay my salary. They'll pay for the airfare, the training, the equipment, and everything that needs to be done. So I can't emphasize it enough, and I had to put that in there because it is a very big benefit for us to send. We might have 7 officers over there, and like the chief said, we get $500,000 just from having officers over there. Imagine that. We're sending officers over there, costing maybe $60K a year, and we're going to get $500,000. So the benefit is we're getting $440,000 back. So It is. And when I say getting that back, that's cash, that's training, that's equipment. So, yeah, I just wanted to put that in there because it is a very big benefit for the Guam Police Department to continue that program. If that was to ever go away, it's something that we're going to definitely lose a lot. Plus, you know, guys working with the federal government, they also get to learn how to work these complex cases that we'll never get. They'll work with the FBI doing complex cases involving financial investigations. Never will we be able to get that. These guys are getting that by just being with an FBI agent. So, thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you, Chief. Well,
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
I don't have any other further questions. I just want to, you know, reemphasize on the fact that, you know, you really need to get with the governor, lieutenant governor, and, you know, have Director Burns sit down with you guys so you can get these GG1s or these recruitments, whatever it is, moving so that we can get more officers into your department to help you out, you know. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
the bottom line is the community safety, and unfortunately, that has not been happening. So, you know, we really need to ramp it up so that we be able to, you know, let the community know that they're safe. You guys are doing everything you can. But anytime that there's a roadblock or any time of situation that says, well, there's a delay, we cannot afford delays. And that's all that I'm trying to say is that you need to really get with them and have Director Byrne get his people to move quickly on GPD recruitments. So
Yes, sir.
hopefully that works out and works out for you and the community at large. But thank you guys for all that you guys do. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator, for your support.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Just a few comments. When they talk about task force, federal government doesn't need to come to Guam. You need to go to them. I'm familiar with that coming from revenue and tax. There's benefits. Major, you said is very clear. Next one, exactly what you brought up, Chief. 200, 300 applicants, 30, 40, understood. Not everyone can qualify or even come up to par with the basic requirements. Understood. Maybe we need to find ways to fund Department Administration more so they can make sure they hire more police officers. Maybe then we need to turn that table around a little bit. But you know what? I support the police department. I'm a graduate of the 19th cycle. Blue is blue.
Blue's blue, sir.
And you know, back then when I was in the police department, I was stationed in Agate. 4 police officers covering the whole South. 200-300 police officers, nothing new. Thank God for the pay. It's gone up.
Yes, sir.
Back then, I think I made less than 12 grand a year. That was my annual. And if it wasn't for the overtime and everything else, I'd never see good pay. I know that. But you know what? I think we've covered all the issues we need to cover on the budget. And with that, the committee will conclude the budget hearing with the Guam Police Department. Committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing and submit it via email to Senator joe@gmail.com or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 Marine Corps Drive, Tamuning, Guam. Tizuz Masi, Chief, and your staff for your attendance and participation in today's hearing. And please thank the men in blue, men and women in blue, and even the civilians. Thank you for your service, and just continue to protect the people of Guam. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This budget hearing on Bill 276-36 CR relative to the Guam Police Department is duly heard and is now adjourned. It is 4:16. Please be safe and take care. Thank you.